Post-World War II division and the establishment of South Korea, a nation split by superpowers. The end of World War II in 1945 brought with it the long-awaited liberation of Korea from 35 years of Japanese colonial rule. However, freedom came with a profound and unexpected cost. Division, what was intended as a short-term, administrative solution, quickly hardened into a permanent geopolitical fracture, birthing two separate Koreas that remain divided to this day. Division at the 38th parallel. A temporary line becomes a permanent border. In the waning days of World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union, wartime allies turned ideological rivals, made a hasty decision to divide the Korean Peninsula along the 38th parallel north. This division was not the result of any Korean political process, but a strategic military arrangement agreed upon with minimal consultation of Korean leaders. Soviet forces entered Korea from the north, accepting the surrender of Japanese troops above the 38th parallel. American forces arrived from the south, taking control of the lower half of the peninsula. At the time, the division was described as temporary, with the understanding that Korea would eventually be unified under a single, independent government. But the Cold War quickly changed everything. Cold War tensions cement the divide. Attempts at joint US-Soviet trusteeship over Korea faltered due to growing ideological differences. The Soviets began building a communist regime in the north, while the US supported a capitalist and democratic government in the south. Political reconciliation became increasingly unlikely as Korean communists, backed by the USSR, solidified control in the north. Anti-communist factions, supported by the US, gained power in the south. Negotiations through the US-Soviet Joint Commission 1946 to 1947 collapsed over disagreements about which Korean political groups were legitimate. By 1948, the peninsula was irrevocably split, not just administratively, but ideologically. Creation of two Koreas. A nation divided with unification efforts deadlocked. Both the US and the Soviet Union pushed for the establishment of separate governments in their respective zones. Republic of Korea ROK. South Korea proclaimed on August 15, 1948, in the US-occupied zone. Syngman Rhee, a longtime independence activist and US-educated political leader, was elected as the first president of South Korea, backed by the United States. The ROK was recognized as the sole legitimate government of Korea by most Western nations. The establishment of the Republic of Korea represented the formal beginning of the South Korean state, built on democratic ideals but heavily influenced by US strategic and political interests. Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, North Korea proclaimed on September 9, 1948. In the Soviet-occupied zone, led by Kim Il-sung, a guerrilla fighter and Soviet protege, who would become the supreme leader of North Korea, the Soviet Union and its allies, recognized the DPRK as the legitimate government of all Korea. Both governments claimed to represent the entire Korean peninsula, further escalating tensions and making peaceful reunification increasingly unlikely. US recognition and support. From the outset, the United States recognized the Republic of Korea, South Korea, as the only lawful government on the peninsula. American support was political, military, and economic, laying the foundation for a lasting bilateral relationship. In 1949, the US withdrew most of its troops but continued to provide economic aid and military advisors. The US viewed South Korea as a key ally in the global fight against communism, especially as tensions with the Soviet Union and China escalated. This support would intensify dramatically in just a year, with the outbreak of the Korean War. In 1950, though the US had little involvement in Korea during the colonial era, its post-war role was decisive in shaping the future of the South. America's support of Syngman Rhee and the ROK government helped establish a non-communist foothold in Northeast Asia, but also committed the US to the region's ongoing conflicts and complexities. The lasting impact of the 1948 division, the division of Korea at the 38th parallel, is one of the most enduring legacies of the early Cold War. It was not born from Korean consensus, but from external superpower interests, with Koreans on both sides caught in the ideological crossfire. Key consequences include the Korean War 1950 to 1953, which further entrenched division and resulted in millions of deaths. The creation of two contrasting political systems, authoritarian communism in the north and US-backed democracy in the south. The enduring military standoff at the Demilitarized Zone (DMZ), one of the most fortified borders in the world. Long-term family separations, human rights issues, and geopolitical instability. Final thoughts: the post-World War II division of Korea and the establishment of two rival states were among the most consequential events of the 20th century. What began as a temporary military arrangement evolved into a geopolitical reality that persists today. For South Korea, the U.S. role was foundational. The support extended during this transitional period helped build the framework for a democratic nation, though not without challenges, authoritarian phases, and internal strife. As we reflect on this period, it's important to remember that the division of Korea was not inevitable. It was the result of decisions made in foreign capitals, not by the Korean people. Yet the resilience of the Korean nation, especially the rise of South Korea as a global democratic power, is a testament to the strength of a people long divided but never broken.